Men, one of the most costly mistakes you can make in modern dating is thinking the only thing that matters is whether she's nice, pretty, or not like the others. The real trap isn't the obvious red flags like rudeness, chaos, or open disrespect. The trap is the hidden pattern that looks normal at first, even appealing, but slowly drains you once you get attached. Before we dive in, hit subscribe, smash the like and hype button, and drop a comment if you've ever realized too late that you weren't dating a woman who wanted love. You were dating a woman who wanted the feeling of love, and the moment the feeling changed, she treated you like expired food. Sign 1. She can rewrite every past relationship with zero emotional weight. When a woman has had an unusually high number of boyfriends, listen carefully to how she speaks about her exes. Not just the words she uses, but the emotional tone. If she can talk about multiple serious relationships like she's reading a grocery list, that's not emotional intelligence. That's emotional desensitization. You'll notice there's no complexity, no self-reflection, no "I played a part too." Instead, every story is clean and sharp. Every ex is either toxic, immature, jealous, controlling, or not on her level. Every breakup was her choosing herself. Every situation ends with her being the victim and the hero at the same time. What this reveals? It reveals she has a highly practiced narrative system. When someone cycles through relationships repeatedly, they can't afford to emotionally process every ending deeply. If they did, it would slow them down. So they develop a shortcut, compress the past, remove nuance, assign blame, and move on. The narrative becomes a psychological tool that protects her ego and keeps her free to repeat the cycle without guilt. Notice how she handles details. If you ask questions, she stays vague. She gives you labels instead of events. He was narcissistic. He was insecure. He was emotionally unavailable. Those are not descriptions of what happened. Those are reputation attacks. They are designed to shut down curiosity and prevent you from seeing patterns that might include her behavior. Pay attention to whether she ever expresses grief, regret, or lessons learned. Not lessons, as in Instagram quotes, but real learning, real accountability, real recognition that two people shape relationship outcomes. If she has had 20 boyfriends and claims every single one was the problem, you are not hearing truth. You are hearing a defense mechanism that has been used so many times it now feels like reality to her. Also notice how quickly she categorizes men. Women who have had many boyfriends often stop seeing men as individuals and start seeing them as types. The jealous type, the boring type, the weak type, the controlling type. This is what happens when dating becomes a conveyor belt. She stops connecting with people and starts collecting experiences, then packaging them into simplified stories. Why this matters? Because one day, she will rewrite you too. If a woman has practiced turning men into villains after the honeymoon ends, she doesn't suddenly stop because you treated her well. In fact, sometimes the better you treat her, the more brutal the rewrite becomes because she has to justify leaving a good man without feeling like the problem. So, she finds a label that makes you the bad guy. You were too controlling becomes you asked for basic loyalty. You were insecure becomes you noticed inconsistencies. You were boring becomes you wanted stability. A woman who can erase 20 relationships emotionally has trained herself to detach. And detachment is not love. Detachment is the opposite of building. Sign 2. She creates instant intimacy, but it feels weirdly rehearsed. This is one of the biggest traps for men. You meet her, and within a short time she seems incredibly open. She tells you deep personal stories. She shares trauma. She shares her fears. She talks about betrayal. She cries, or at least speaks with emotional intensity. She makes you feel like you understand her, like you're different, like you're the safe man who finally gets her. But the key detail is how early it happens and how smoothly it happens. It's almost like she has done this exact scene before. Because she has. What this reveals? It reveals that intimacy has become a strategy rather than a process. Real intimacy builds through shared experiences over time. It requires consistency, safety, and mutual investment. When intimacy happens instantly, it often means she has learned how to bond quickly, because she has had to bond quickly in many relationships. She knows which stories create sympathy. She knows which wounds make men protective. She knows how to position herself as a fragile but special woman who just needs the right man. And the dangerous part is that she may not even be consciously manipulating. She may genuinely believe this is being open. But the effect is the same. You attach faster than you should. Look for the difference between vulnerability and responsibility. Vulnerability without responsibility is just an emotional performance. Responsibility is when she says, "This is my issue and I'm working on it." Responsibility is when her trauma does not become an excuse to treat people badly. Responsibility is when her past is not used to demand special treatment while she gives you uncertainty. Women with very high boyfriend counts often use trauma as a permanent explanation, not as something they actively heal. They tell you about pain, but they don't build stability. They share wounds, but they don't build trust. They reveal emotions, but they avoid commitment. So you end up emotionally invested in a woman who feels deep, but doesn't actually build deep. Notice the timing of the deep talk. If it comes right when you start pulling back, or right when you start questioning her consistency, that's important. Many high turnover daters use intimacy as glue. When the connection starts to weaken, they drop a vulnerability bomb to pull you back in. Why this matters? Because the faster she bonds, the faster she detaches. If intimacy is her tool to create attachment, then attachment is not sacred to her. It's something she knows how to generate, and when she knows she can generate it again with someone else, she doesn't fear losing you the way a stable woman would. That's why men get blindsided. They think, "We had such a deep connection." But the truth is, you experienced depth. She experienced a familiar scene. And when you confuse emotional intensity for commitment, you end up investing in a person who is emotionally talented but relationally unstable. Sign 3. She is addicted to the honeymoon phase and confuses calm with boredom. A woman who has had more than 20 boyfriends often has one major trait. She is in love with the beginning. She loves first dates, first kisses, first trips, first arguments that end in makeup sex, first "I miss you" messages, first jealousy, first obsession. She thrives on novelty and emotional spikes. But relationships are not supposed to stay like that. A healthy relationship evolves into calm, stability, routine, and trust. Chemistry becomes partnership. The dopamine reduces. The emotional roller coaster becomes a steady ride. That's not boring. That's maturity. For a high turnover dater, that calm feels like death. What this reveals? It reveals she may be chasing stimulation rather than compatibility. Women who rotate through many boyfriends often develop a nervous system that is used to intensity. They feel alive when they're being pursued, when there's uncertainty, when there's jealousy, when there's conflict followed by passion. So when you provide stable love, she interprets it as lack of chemistry. Watch how she reacts after a few months. At the start, she's obsessed. She texts fast. She wants you. She seems grateful. Then, once she feels you're attached, her energy changes. She becomes inconsistent. She says she's confused. She starts pulling back. She becomes irritated by small things. She starts creating problems that didn't exist. Notice how she explains it. It's never direct. It's vague emotional language. "I don't know. I just feel different. The vibe is off. I'm not sure if we're aligned." That vagueness is a sign she isn't responding to you, she's responding to her internal chemistry cycle. Also pay attention to her relationship timeline stories. If she says most of her relationships lasted only a few months, and she laughs it off like, it just never works, that's not fate, that's pattern. A woman who repeatedly exits at the same phase is not unlucky. She is wired to leave once novelty fades. Why this matters? Because you will be punished for being stable. You will think, I'm doing everything right. And you might be. But if she's addicted to intensity, doing things right won't keep her. It will actually make her restless, because she can't generate drama out of stability unless she becomes the drama. And once she starts creating drama, you enter the worst dynamic. You become a man trying to prove your love to a woman who only feels love when she's uncertain. So you chase, she pulls away, then she returns, then she pulls away again. That's not romance. That's emotional conditioning. That's a cycle designed to keep you hooked while she stays in control. Sign 4. She keeps emotional backups, old flames, and just friends that never fully disappear. A woman with a long boyfriend history often has an entire orbit of men. Exes she ended on good terms with, male friends she once slept with, men who check in, guys she claims are harmless. And it's not just that these men exist, it's that she keeps them accessible. It's like she never truly closes doors, she just changes how she uses them. What this reveals? It reveals she is used to having options, and she's emotionally prepared for relationships to fail. This is not always conscious cheating, it's often psychological insurance. If she has had 20 boyfriends, it means she has left or been left many times. That builds a mindset. Don't invest fully, keep exits open, keep replacement available. Pay attention to how she reacts to boundaries around this. A stable woman will understand respectful limits. She might not like them at first, but she'll acknowledge the logic. A high-turnover dater often reacts with moral outrage. She calls you insecure for wanting clarity. She calls you controlling for wanting transparency. She reframes your boundary as an attack because boundaries threaten her option system. Also notice whether she keeps attention pipelines active. The harmless likes, the constant mail DMs, the flirting disguised as friendliness, the "it's just jokes." These behaviors keep her emotionally stimulated and validate her desirability. Many women with high boyfriend counts are not addicted to sex, they're addicted to attention. Relationships become one source of attention, not the only source. Why this matters? Because you can't build trust with someone who lives as if replacement is always available. When a woman keeps emotional backups, you are never fully safe. You are always competing with the idea of someone else. Even if she never physically cheats, the presence of those exits changes her behavior. She becomes less patient, less invested, and more willing to threaten leaving because she knows she won't be alone. And that changes the power dynamic. You become the one trying to maintain stability while she maintains leverage through optionality. That is not partnership. That is not love. That is a marketplace mentality. Sign 5. She talks like commitment is losing herself, and freedom means the ability to exit. This is the most revealing sign because it exposes how she views relationships. Women who have had more than 20 boyfriends often speak about commitment in a very specific way. Not as a shared build, not as growth, not as partnership, but as danger, as restriction, as loss. You'll hear phrases like, "I don't want to lose myself," "I need my freedom," "I've been trapped before," "I don't like labels," "I move differently," "I'm not the type to be controlled," even when you're not controlling her. What this reveals? It reveals she associates long-term bonding with pain, boredom, or identity threat, and it often comes from repeating shallow relationships instead of building one mature one. If she never stayed long enough to learn healthy interdependence, she never learned how to be close without feeling suffocated. so closeness becomes suspicious to her. Watch how she handles future talk. A stable woman who likes you will lean into planning. She'll want clarity, she'll want direction. A high turnover dater often stalls. She doesn't know. She needs time. She wants to see where it goes. That sounds normal early, but if it stays constant, it's a warning. Also notice how she uses independence as a shield. Independence is good. But when independence is used to avoid accountability, it becomes a weapon. She can do whatever she wants, keep whoever she wants, disappear when she wants. And if you question it, you're insecure. That's not independence. That's emotional lawlessness. Why this matters? Because relationships require vulnerability, sacrifice, and responsibility. If she defines freedom as her ability to exit any time, then she will never fully invest. And you will feel it. You'll feel like you're dating someone who keeps one foot outside the door. And here's the harsh truth. The more stable you are, the more likely she is to feel trapped. Because stability demands consistency, and consistency exposes people who rely on chaos, novelty, and exit power to feel alive. Sign 6. She treats relationships as self-discovery projects, not commitments. A woman who has had more than 20 boyfriends often talks about relationships the way people talk about travel, hobbies, or phases of life. Each relationship is framed as something that taught her about herself, helped her grow, or showed her what she doesn't want. On the surface, this sounds mature and reflective. In reality, it reveals something very different. What this reveals? It reveals she uses men as emotional environments, not as partners. Relationships are not something she builds. They are something she experiences. Each man represents a chapter in her personal development story, not a person she intends to stay with. Once the lesson feels learned, the relationship becomes obsolete. Listen to the language carefully. If she consistently describes past boyfriends as chapters, phases, or periods of my life, she's telling you how she views relationships structurally. They are temporary by design. She enters them to feel something, learn something, or fix something inside herself, not to create something mutual and lasting. Notice whether her growth always happens after leaving. She rarely talks about working through problems within relationships. Growth only occurs once she exits. That means conflict is not something to resolve. It's something that signals time to leave. Stability doesn't represent success to her. Movement does. This mindset is common in women with long relationship histories because leaving feels productive. Staying feels stagnant. If she has spent years redefining herself through new men, commitment threatens her self-concept. If she commits, the cycle stops. And stopping feels like losing momentum, identity, and control. Why this matters? Because if she sees relationships as self-discovery tools, you are not her destination, you are her lesson. And once she feels she has learned what she needed from you, she will emotionally detach while telling herself she's evolving, not abandoning. You won't be left because you failed. You'll be left because she feels done. Sign 7. She is extremely comfortable leaving without closure. The final sign is one men usually recognize only after it happens to them. A woman with a very high boyfriend count does not struggle to leave. She does not spiral. She does not hesitate. She does not need long explanations or drawn-out conversations. She exits cleanly, quickly, and often coldly. What this reveals? It reveals emotional muscle memory. Leaving no longer triggers fear, guilt, or uncertainty for her. It feels familiar, natural, almost relieving. She has done it so many times that her nervous system associates leaving with safety rather than loss. Watch how she handles difficult conversations. If things start to get serious, tense, or emotionally demanding, she becomes avoidant. She delays talks. She says she needs space. She withdraws emotionally first, then physically. By the time she officially ends things, she's already gone. You're not having a breakup conversation. You're being informed of a decision she made weeks ago. Notice how little closure she provides. Explanations are vague. Emotional responsibility is minimal. She may even act surprised that you're hurt, confused, or seeking answers. That's because to her, endings are procedural. She doesn't see them as emotional events that require care. She sees them as transitions. Women who haven't had many relationships usually struggle with endings. They doubt themselves. They feel guilt. They need reassurance they're doing the right thing. A woman who has ended 20 relationships does not need reassurance. She trusts the act of leaving more than she trusts staying. Why this matters? Because if someone can leave you without emotional weight, it means they never attached in a way that made loss dangerous. And if loss isn't dangerous to them, your value in their emotional world is limited. You are replaceable not because you're lacking, but because replacement is normal for her. Men often blame themselves after these exits. They replay conversations. They look for mistakes. But the truth is simpler and harsher. You are dating someone who has trained herself to disconnect efficiently. An efficient detachment is not compatible with long-term love.